Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So today, I want to talk about the First Wizarding War and in particular, the Weasleys, or more so, why they didn't participate or have anything to do with the First Wizarding War in general. I think it's an area that kind of gets overlooked. It's not a topic that's brought up in many conversations. So the question is, where was Arthur Weasley during the war? Where was Molly Weasley during the war? The husband and wife were heavily involved in the Second Wizarding War and became members of the Order of the Phoenix. Arthur was also heavily involved in late-night raids due to his role as head of the Office for the Detection and Confiscation of Counterfeit Defensive Spells and Protective Objects. That is a long title. Anyway, it's a promotion that was well overdue due to his refusal to tolerate corruption and bribery. Anyway, it's not really the Second War that I want to talk about, it's the First War, when Voldemort was really making a name for himself, attracting a lot of attention and ultimately gathering a mass amount of followers. Now for those of you who don't know, I'm sure many of you already do, but for those of you who don't, Arthur and Molly both met while they were students in Hogwarts. They began dating while in Hogwarts, they left Hogwarts as a couple, and they married rather quickly after graduation. However, during their school days, they had heard of Voldemort and there was a lot of talk about those who planned on joining him when they got out of school. Molly had two brothers, Fabian and Gideon, who were well-established wizards and integral members of the newly established Order of the Phoenix under the leadership of Albus Dumbledore. Now, I've said this in several videos before and I will say it again, the Order never really had an easy ride in their fight against Voldemort. They were almost always on the back foot and it was more of a case of delaying the inevitable while they looked for a way to defeat the Dark Lord. The First War was pretty awful. It wasn't a good time to be in the magical sector of Great Britain. The Death Eaters and the Order were going back and forward, former friends stood opposite of each other, people were going missing, it just wasn't good. Fabian and Gideon, Molly's older brothers, had been in what would appear initially to be a 2v2 duel with the Death Eaters that actually resulted in them being lured, ambushed and ultimately both killed at the hands of Antonin Dolohov and several other Death Eaters who had awaited them. This was a massive blow to the Order, but more so to Molly herself, who had just lost two of the closest people to her. She had also fallen pregnant rather quickly, which was meant that she needed to be cared for, protected for, and hidden from open conflict at all costs. There was no way Molly would lose her husband so close to losing her brothers, and so with that, Arthur refused to join the Order or participate in the First War in any way. His new family's preservation was all that mattered to him. He used vanishing cabinets quite a lot during the war and bought a large stone pigpen in the Devon countryside far away from conflict. The pigpen was transformed into a home and built upon as the years passed by, going by the name of the borough, which we're all familiar with today. As I said, protecting and building his family was a priority. Naturally, as a father to a growing family, Arthur would be very busy at the time, caring for his children when home and establishing a career as a wizard fresh out of Hogwarts. This would mean that Arthur likely had to put in long hours in order to get noticed and then come home to a busy household. The man had no time to join a secret society with the goal to defeat Voldemort on top of that. Molly also said that he was often called away on weekends during the First War, so on top of his career and family, he was also on call a lot. There is also an implication from Moody, or Crouch Jr., that Arthur had some sort of negative experience with the Imperius Curse during the First War, so it is possible that Arthur was at some point placed under the Imperius Curse as Voldemort and the Death Eaters infiltrated the Ministry. As I mentioned earlier, Arthur refused to be part of any corruption or do anything shady for any of his, you could say, darker-minded colleagues, and this did hamper his means of any promotion or progression within the Ministry. It would be close to a decade before he got the detection and confiscation gig, originally working with the Misuse of Muggles Artifacts Office, something I can't see being so enjoyable, but personally, for Arthur, he genuinely loved it and he missed the job after he left it. It left him with burning questions like the famous rubber duck function that we often hear from basically everyone. Even after the birth of their first-born child, it was not long before their second and third, and it seemed like the Weasleys would never really be hands-on with any anti-Voldemort campaigns, you could say. However, when their children did come of age, and probably due to the sense of responsibility to act from the lack of participation in the previous war, Arthur and Molly were front and centre when the Dark Lord returned to power. They were heavily involved with all Order meetings and played a crucial role in the defense of the school during the Battle of Hogwarts. In addition to that, despite losing their son Fred, they continued to fight on, with Molly even defeating and killing Bellatrix Lestrange, something that caused Voldemort to let out a loud scream of anger and frustration, and receiving some sort of vengeance for her son. Sure, what does Bellatrix expect? She just tries to kill Molly's only daughter, Ginny. So, she gets killed. Arthur held his own during the battle, but even before that, he refused to leave his guard post at the Hall of Prophecies and suffered a devastating and basically life-threatening attack by Nagini, leaving him with wounds that just would not heal. He still returns to work and even questioned the morality of Albert Runcorn for his information that led to the discovery of Dirk Cresswell, forging his family tree in order to stay clear of the Dark Lord's ruthless new heritage legislation. So although Arthur and Molly didn't participate in the first Wizarding War for legitimate purposes, they certainly made up for it in the second war, judging by the numerous examples I've shown today. It's also noteworthy to mention that Arthur did in fact return to his old job after the war ended. Maybe he just wanted to focus on figuring out really what a rubber duck actually does. Anyway everyone, with that being said, that is my take on why the Weasleys refused to help during the first Wizarding War. If you want to add anything down below, please do, it's always appreciated. I'll be back soon with another video, but please remember, red hair and a hand-me-down robe? You must be someone who hasn't clicked like on this video. See you soon everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. Everyone, notifications of uploads are more important than ever, so please, if you haven't already, turn those notifications on to make sure you're notified the moment my video goes live. Making videos is what I love to do, it's my dream and my passion. However, it does cost time and money to produce this content, so if you have $1 to spare to support me on Patreon in exchange for some exclusive unseen content, then you can click the Patreon link below or at the end of this video. Please only support me if you can afford it. And make sure to follow me on Instagram at InstaDNJ and on Twitter at PotterFolklore. Check out my other videos appearing on screen, and please make sure, most importantly, to hit that subscribe button. Thanks again everyone, and please have a great day.